I never thought betrayal would have a lavender scent. The overpowering smell of my mother-in-law's trademark perfume permeating a room where it had no right being was the first thing that struck me when I entered our bedroom that evening. I'm Lila, and I thought I had it all sorted out. Career on track, marriage strong, bright future, until I saw that message on my pillow. It's funny how that illusion may be destroyed by a single piece of paper. The note itself was simple, written in Marjorie's unmistakable cursive. Some wives deserve what's coming to them. M. I stood there holding the paper while my hands started to shake. The house was quiet, except for the distant sound of Ethan in the shower. Too quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you notice things, like how the throw pillows on our bed were slightly misaligned, or how my bedside drawer wasn't fully closed. "Hey, babe," Ethan called out from the bathroom. "Didn't expect you home so early. How was the merger meeting?" I quickly folded the note and slipped it into my pocket. "It went fine," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Ethan, has your mother been here today?" The water shut off. There was a pause, just a beat too long. "Mom?" "No. Why would she be?" I opened my bedside drawer. My personal planner was slightly out of place, and when I flipped through it, I could see faint fingerprints on pages detailing my upcoming business trips and meetings. Ethan emerged from the bathroom, a towel around his waist, water dripping from his hair. He used to look at me with such warmth. Now, I caught something else in his eyes: guilt, concern. "You're sure about that?" I pressed, watching his face carefully, "because I can smell her perfume in here." He laughed, but it sounded forced. "Come on, Lila. You're being paranoid. Mom's probably still upset about us missing Sunday dinner, but she wouldn't just show up here." "Really? Like she wouldn't just show up at my office last week to remind me about family obligations." Ethan's jaw tightened. "She's just worried about us, about our future. Maybe if you weren't so focused on work." "Don't." I cut him off. "Don't make this about my job again." My phone buzzed, a text from Naomi. "Emergency wine night needed. Just closed a sale near you." I looked at Ethan, still standing there, water creating a small puddle at his feet. The man I married 5 years ago would have been outraged at the idea of his mother going through our things. This version just looked tired. "I'm going out," I said, grabbing my purse. "And when I get back, we need to talk about boundaries." "Lila, wait." He reached for my arm, but I was already moving past him. "And change the sheets," I called over my shoulder. "They smell like lavender." As I drove to meet Naomi, my mind raced. The note wasn't just a threat, it was a declaration of war. Marjorie had always made it clear she thought I was wrong for her precious son. Too ambitious, too independent, not the traditional wife she'd envisioned. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Victor, my boss. "Outstanding work on the merger presentation. Bard wants to fast-track the expansion. Need you to lead the new division. Details tomorrow." I smiled despite everything. The promotion I'd been working toward was finally within reach. But as I pulled into the wine bar's parking lot, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was about to face an impossible choice: my career or my marriage. Naomi was waiting outside, 2 glasses of red already in hand. One look at my face, and she said, "Oh, honey, what did the witch do now?" I pulled out the note and handed it to her. "Declared war," I replied, "and I think my husband might be on her side." 3 days after finding the note, I walked into my office to find Victor waiting for me, holding a stack of merger documents. The expression on his face made my stomach drop. Someone's been talking to our competitors, he said, dropping the papers on my desk. Details about the merger leaked. The board's furious. I sank into my chair, my mind racing. Only 5 people had access to those documents, and I trusted my team completely. How bad is it? Bad enough that we need to move faster. I want you to fly out tomorrow. Meet with the Singapore team in person. 2 weeks minimum. My phone buzzed. Ethan. I ignored it. I'll make it happen, I told Victor. The timing couldn't have been worse, but maybe some distance would help clear my head. When I got home that evening, I found Ethan in the kitchen with Marjorie. They fell silent as soon as I walked in, like teenagers caught plotting something. Lyle, darling. Marjorie's smile never reached her eyes. I was just telling Ethan about this lovely couple's retreat. Perfect timing, with your work being so demanding lately. I set my briefcase down harder than necessary. Actually, I'm flying to Singapore tomorrow. Merger complications. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Ethan's face darkened. Tomorrow? Were you planning to tell me? I just found out myself. It's 2 weeks, maybe 3. Marjorie clicked her tongue. Oh dear. That's unfortunate timing. Ethan just agreed to let me stay here while my condo gets renovated. But don't worry. I'll take good care of him while you're gone. My head snapped up. Condo? The one you just spent a fortune renovating last year. Mold, she said smoothly. Such a terrible problem in these old buildings. I looked at Ethan, who suddenly seemed very interested in his coffee mug. And when were you planning to tell me about this arrangement? I thought, with you being so busy, he trailed off, avoiding my eyes. I need to pack. I turned and headed upstairs, my hands shaking as I pulled out my suitcase. A few minutes later, I heard Ethan's footsteps behind me. You're being unfair, he said. She's my mother. She needs help. I kept folding clothes, not trusting myself to look at him. Like she needed help last Christmas? And the summer before that? There's always some crisis, Ethan. Always some reason she needs to insert herself into our lives. She's lonely since Dad died. It's been 7 years. I spun around. And what about that note she left? Are we just not going to talk about that? What note? The genuine confusion in his voice stopped me cold. I pulled out the paper and handed it to him. His face changed as he read it. This isn't Mom's handwriting, he said slowly. I snatched it back, studying it more carefully. He was right. The cursive was similar, but not identical. Then who? My phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Enjoying the chaos? There's more where that came from. Someone's playing games, Ethan said, reading over my shoulder. We should call the police, I said, but something clicked in my mind. The leaked merger documents. The fake note. The sudden appearance of Marjorie. It was too perfect, too coordinated. I need to make a call, I said, already dialing Naomi's number. And Ethan, while I'm gone, maybe you should ask your mother about Margaret Evans. His face went pale. Margaret Evans? The woman who'd been CFO at your company before you, who mysteriously resigned after a series of personal scandals. The same position you now hold. What does Mom have to do with Margaret? I zipped up my suitcase. Ask her. And maybe while you're at it, ask her why she's been having lunch with our biggest competitor's CEO. As I wheeled my suitcase past him, I caught a glimpse of Marjorie watching from the hallway, her face unreadable. But this time, I noticed something I'd missed before. The faint scent of her perfume, exactly like the one in our bedroom days ago. The game was bigger than I thought, and I was done playing defense. Singapore was supposed to be my escape, but Marjorie's shadow followed me halfway across the world. I was reviewing merger documents in my hotel room when Naomi's urgent video call came through. "You need to check your joint accounts," she said without preamble. Now, my hands shook as I pulled up our banking app. The numbers didn't make sense at first. There were dozens of recent transfers I didn't recognize, large ones. "How did you know?" I asked, my throat tight. "Because I just showed $1 million property to your mother-in-law. She's buying it cash. Said it's going to be a surprise for Ethan." The room started spinning. I checked the transfer dates. They aligned perfectly with my business trips, times when I was too busy to notice our accounts being drained. My phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. Should have paid more attention to the home front. I called Ethan 3 times, straight to voicemail. Finally, I texted, "Where's the money?" His response came hours later. "Mom's helping us invest in our future. Come home and we can talk about it." I laughed until I felt sick. Our future, right. The next morning, I headed to the Singapore office early, needing to lose myself in work. Instead, I found an email from Margaret Evans waiting in my inbox. "I saw your name in the merger documents. History repeats itself. Call me if you want to know how this ends." I stared at her number for a long time before dialing. She answered on the first ring. "Let me guess," she said. "Marjorie's moved in?" "How did you?" Because that's how it started with me too. The concerned mother-in-law, worried about her son's workaholic wife. Then the financial help. Then the rumors. My blood ran cold. What rumors? Check your company email. The anonymous tips about insider trading should be arriving any minute now. As if on cue, my phone lit up with a message from Victor, my office. "Now, we need to discuss some allegations." I ran to the bathroom and threw up. When I got back to my hotel that night, after hours of defending myself to the board, I found an email from our family lawyer. Buried in the attachments was a document with Marjorie's signature, a power of attorney form dated 3 months ago. Ethan had given her control of our joint assets. I called Naomi again. "I need you to do something for me," I said, my voice steady despite everything. "Find out everything you can about Marjorie's finances from when her husband died. Something's not adding up." "Already on it," she replied. "And Lila, there's something else you should know. I drove by your house today. There's a for sale sign in the yard." I ended the call and opened my laptop. First, I transferred every penny from my personal accounts to a new bank. Then I'd booked a flight home, not to run, but to fight. My phone buzzed one last time that night. A photo from the unknown number. Marjorie and Ethan at dinner with the CEO of our biggest competitor. The caption read, "Checkmate." But they'd made one crucial mistake. In the background of the photo, partially visible on their table, was a document I recognized, our confidential merger papers. I forwarded the photo to Victor with one line, "Found our leak." Then I started typing an email to our company's legal team. The subject line, "Evidence of corporate espionage and financial fraud." Marjorie wanted to play chess. Fine. But she'd forgotten something important. In chess, the queen is the most powerful piece on the board. As I packed my bags for the flight home, I found the original note that had started all this, still tucked in my jacket pocket. Some wives deserve what's coming to them. I smiled for the first time in days. Yes, we do, just not in the way Marjorie imagined. The corporate espionage investigation moved fast. By the time my flight landed, Victor had already called an emergency board meeting. What I didn't expect was to find Ethan waiting at the airport. "You're making a huge mistake," he said, falling into step beside me. "Mom was trying to protect us." I kept walking. By stealing our money, by selling company secrets, she was protecting our future. The merger would have meant relocating to New York. She found out before you could blindside me with it. I stopped dead in my tracks. The New York position, my dream job, had been confidential. Only the board knew. "How long?" I asked. "How long have you been helping her spy on my company?" His silence was answer enough. My phone buzzed. "Victor, board meeting in 30. Bring everything you have. And Lila, the New York position is still yours if you want it." At the office, security stopped Ethan at the lobby. I watched him argue with them through the glass doors, looking lost in his expensive suit, the one I'd bought him for our anniversary. The boardroom was packed. Victor stood at the head of the table, looking grim. "Mrs. Everett is already here," he said. For a moment, I thought he meant me. Then I saw Marjorie sitting calmly among the board members, wearing a triumphant smile. "I hope you don't mind," she said sweetly. "I brought some documents of my own to share." She slid a folder across the table. Inside were printouts of emails, my emails, discussing confidential merger details, with dates that matched perfectly with the information leaks. "These were found on my daughter-in-law's personal laptop," Marjorie announced, along with evidence of substantial private trading activity. The room went quiet. I felt the blood drain from my face as I realized her plan. She hadn't just been gathering information. She'd been planting evidence. "That's impossible," I started, but Victor raised his hand. "There's more," he said. "Mrs. Everett has also brought to our attention some concerning wire transfers, which I can explain. To offshore accounts," he finished. Marjorie's smile widened. I hate to say it, but when I discovered what Lila was doing, I felt morally obligated to come forward. Family loyalty only goes so far. I almost laughed at the irony. Instead, I pulled out my phone and played the recording I'd made in Singapore, Marjorie's voice, clear as day, discussing the merger details with our competitor. "Interesting timing," I said, watching her smile fade, especially since these conversations happened before any of those emails were supposedly sent from my laptop. I laid out my own evidence, timestamps proving the emails were backdated, bank records showing the real destination of the missing money, and finally Margaret Evans' sworn statement about Marjorie's previous corporate sabotage. "You're not the only one who knows how to gather evidence," I told her. "The difference is mine is real." The board erupted in chaos as security escorted Marjorie out. She hissed, "You'll regret this. Ethan will never choose you over family." "That's where you're wrong," I replied. "You stopped being his only family the day we married. You just couldn't accept that." Later that night, Victor called to formally offer me the New York position. "The board was impressed by how you handled this," he said. "We need someone like you heading up the East Coast division." I looked out my office window. Ethan was still waiting in the parking lot, sitting in his car. 5 years of marriage, and it had come down to this: a choice between the life I'd built and the life he wanted me to live. My phone buzzed one last time. Another unknown number. "You won this round, but ask yourself, what else are you willing to lose?" I deleted the message and picked up my office phone. "Victor, I'll take the job." Sometimes protecting yourself means being willing to lose everything. I learned that lesson the hard way. Now it was time to teach it to someone else. I should have known something was wrong when Naomi called to warn me about the cars parked outside our house. It looks like a family reunion, she said, and not the fun kind. I pulled into our driveway to find Ethan's entire family waiting in the living room. Aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't seen since our wedding. And there, holding court in my favorite armchair, sat Marjorie. "Darling," she said, rising to greet me. "We've all been so worried." The room felt like a trap closing in. Family photos had been strategically placed around the room, happy moments from before my career took off, before I changed, as Marjorie loved to say. "What is this?" I asked Ethan, who wouldn't meet my eyes. His Aunt Sarah spoke first. "We're here because we love you both. But this situation, the accusations against Marjorie, the New York position, the divorce papers you requested," Marjorie added softly, producing a manila envelope from beside her chair. My head snapped toward Ethan. "I hadn't requested any divorce papers. I found them in your email drafts," he said quietly. "Were you even going to tell me?" The draft email, the one I'd written in Singapore during my darkest moment, but never sent. Someone had accessed my personal account again. "Show them the email," I said. "Show them the actual sent date." Marjorie's smile tightened. "The details aren't important. What matters is healing this family." "Family?" I laughed. "Like how you tried to frame me for corporate espionage, or how you drained our accounts." "Ella," Ethan warned, but I was done being careful. "Tell them, Marjorie. Tell them about Margaret Evans, about the competitor meetings, about how success changed you," she interrupted. "About how my son comes home to an empty house while his wife chases promotions. Don't you dare. Show them your phone," she continued. "Show them the texts from Victor at all hours, the late-night meetings, the trips." The room grew thick with whispers. I saw the judgment in their eyes, the story already written in their minds. "Ethan needs stability," his uncle declared, "a real family." "And what about what I need?" I asked, but my voice was drowned out by a chorus of concerned relatives, all talking about family values and priorities and choices. That's when I saw it. The moving boxes stacked in the hallway, already packed and labeled. Ethan's clothes, kitchen, photos. "When were you planning to tell me about these?" I demanded. "Mom found us a place," Ethan said. "Just until things settle down. Until you decide what's really important." The room spun. 5 years of marriage reduced to cardboard boxes and ultimatums. My phone buzzed. "Victor again. Need your decision on New York by tomorrow. Team's waiting." I looked around the room at these people who claimed to love me while systematically dismantling my life. At my husband, who'd rather believe his mother's lies than face the truth. "You want me to choose?" I said finally. "Fine, I choose me." I walked to our bedroom, grabbed my emergency bag, the one I'd packed after Singapore, and headed for the door. "Ella, wait," Ethan called. "We can work this out." I turned back one last time. You know what's funny? I actually thought I was the one waging a war. But this elaborate ambush, this is what real manipulation looks like. Congratulations, Marjorie. You've taught me more about revenge than I ever wanted to learn. Sometimes love means making hard choices, she replied, but I caught the flash of uncertainty in her eyes. No, I said. Love means not forcing someone to choose. As I drove away, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "Running away proves everything I said about you." I smiled and typed back, "Not running, just getting reinforcements." The war wasn't over. It was just moving to a different battlefield. And this time, I'd be ready. 3 weeks into my new life in New York, I came home to find my apartment door unlocked. Inside, Marjorie sat at my kitchen counter, flipping through a stack of papers I recognized immediately. My private investigator's reports on her past. Fascinating reading, she said, not looking up. Though I'm surprised you missed the most interesting part. I kept my distance, phone ready to call security. How did you get in? Ethan's name is still on the lease application as your emergency contact. Amazing what a concerned mother-in-law story can accomplish. My stomach dropped. I'd been so careful with everything else, but I'd forgotten that one detail. Where is he? I asked. Downstairs, probably still arguing with the doorman. He doesn't know I made a copy of the key. She finally looked up. You've been busy, digging into my finances, talking to Margaret Evans, even tracking down my late husband's old business partners. You should leave. But we're just getting to the good part. She pulled out a particular document. See, while you were investigating me, I was investigating you. Did you know your father didn't actually abandon your family when you were 12? The room tilted slightly. What are you talking about? He tried to contact you multiple times. But your mother? Marjorie smiled. Well, let's just say she had her own ideas about family loyalty. You're lying. She slid an envelope across the counter. Inside were letters, dozens of them, in my father's handwriting, all returned unopened. Amazing what you can find in your mother's attic, Marjorie said softly, when she's properly motivated to help protect her daughter from making the same mistake she did. My hands shook as I read the first letter. It was dated just months after he left, explaining everything, begging to see me. There were birthday cards, graduation congratulations, even a letter from just last year. My mother would never help me. You'd be surprised what people will do when they think they're protecting their children from pain. Marjorie studied me. You're not so different from her, so convinced you know what's best, so ready to burn everything down in the name of independence. The apartment door opened. Ethan walked in, stopping short when he saw me. You look thin, he said quietly. I couldn't answer. The letters in my hands felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds. I'll give you two a moment, Marjorie said, gathering her things. At the door, she paused. Oh, and Ella, the board meeting tomorrow? Don't bother going. Victor's retirement was announced this morning. His replacement already has someone else in mind for your position. The door clicked shut behind her. Ethan and I stood in silence, grief and an ocean of betrayal between us. Did you know? I finally asked about my father's letters. Mom told me last week. He looked exhausted. She also told me about the private investigator, the interviews with Dad's old business partners. Were you ever going to tell me you were building a case against my mother? Were you ever going to tell me you helped her access my work emails? He flinched. I was trying to protect you. The New York position, it would have killed us. No, I said. Your mother killed us, and you helped her bury the body. My phone buzzed. Naomi, turn on the news. Now. The financial headlines scrolled across my TV screen. Market manipulation investigation opens at major trading firm. Multiple executives named. My name was on the list. Mom said this might happen, Ethan said softly. That's why I came, to warn you. I stared at the letters from my father, at the news headlines, at my husband's familiar yet stranger's face. Everything I'd built, everything I believed in, was crumbling. Get out, I whispered. Ella, get out. After he left, I sat in my dark apartment, surrounded by the ruins of my carefully constructed life. My phone buzzed one last time, an unknown number. Now you understand. Some things are thicker than water. Some betrayals run in the family. She was right about one thing. This was about family, just not in the way she thought. The annual Everett Family Foundation Gala wasn't my idea. It was Naomi's. It's perfect, she'd said. Marjorie's pet project. All her social circles in one place. And I have something she doesn't expect. That something was currently sitting in my purse. A USB drive containing 30 years of financial records that had taken weeks to compile. Records that showed exactly where her late husband's fortune had really gone. I spotted Marjorie holding court near the stage, resplendent in designer black, playing the grieving mother to a sympathetic audience. Ethan stood beside her, looking uncomfortable in his tuxedo. Marjorie's hand shook as she reached for her wine glass. You have no proof. Actually, I do, I said. Your husband kept records of everything, including your plans to frame him for embezzlement before his convenient heart attack. The glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. That's why you were so desperate to control Ethan, weren't you? I continued. As long as he was foundation chairman, you could keep hiding the money. Until I started asking questions. Mom? Ethan's voice cracked. Is this true? Of course not, she snapped. She's trying to destroy our family. The way you destroyed Margaret Evans. I pulled out my phone and hit play. Marjorie's voice filled the room. Either resign quietly, or everyone learns about your son's real father. The crowd erupted in whispers. Ethan staggered back like he'd been hit. 7 years, I said quietly. 7 years of manipulation, lies, and theft, all while playing the grieving widow. You don't understand, Marjorie hissed. Everything I did was for family. No, Ethan's voice cut through the chaos. Everything you did was for control. Security was already moving through the crowd, but before they reached her, Marjorie straightened her spine and looked me dead in the eye. You think you've won? That this makes you better than me? She laughed bitterly. Look around, dear. You're standing alone. No husband, no family. No, that's where you're wrong. I nodded to the back of the room where Victor stood with the FBI agents we contacted weeks ago. I'm not alone. I just chose my family more carefully than you did. As they led her away, Ethan caught my arm. I should have seen it. I should have believed you. Yes, I said. You should have. Can we? No. I gently removed his hand. Some things can't be fixed, but they can be learned from. My phone buzzed one last time. An unknown number. This time, I deleted it without reading. Some messages didn't need a response. Outside, the city lights sparkled like justice finally served. Naomi was waiting with a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. To family, she said, pouring. I smiled, thinking of my father's email. To choosing our own. 6 months after the gala, I found myself back in our old neighborhood, helping Naomi stage a house for sale. It wasn't just any house, it was Marjorie's. The irony, Naomi said, arranging flowers in the foyer. You're literally cleaning up her mess. This time, the place felt smaller than I remembered. Boxes of evidence lined the halls, waiting for the FBI's final sweep. In the living room, family photos still hung crooked on the walls. Perfect facades hiding perfect lies. My phone buzzed, a text from my father. Lunch next week? We were taking small steps, building something new from the ruins of what was lost. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. The doorbell rang. Ethan stood on the porch, looking older, somehow more himself. I thought I'd find you here, he said. Mom asked to see you. I hadn't visited Marjorie in prison, hadn't responded to her letters, but something in Ethan's voice made me pause. "She's dying," he said quietly. "Cancer. She's known for months, even before everything." The universe had a twisted sense of humor. At the prison, Marjorie looked small in her gray uniform, her perfectly coiffed hair now stringy and white. When she saw me, she didn't smile. "I suppose you think this is justice," she said. "I didn't come for justice." "No," she laughed weakly. "Then why are you here?" "To understand." She was quiet for a long moment. "When Ethan's father died, I thought I'd lost everything. Power, status, control. It all slipped away. Then I saw you building your career, taking my son further from me. I couldn't lose again." "So you destroyed everything," I said. "You protected what was yours." She coughed, "Or thought I was." Funny how fear makes us mistake possession for love. I thought of my father's words in that email. Some people mistake control for love. "Are you happy?" she asked suddenly. "In your new life?" "I'm free," I replied. "It's not the same thing, but it's better." She nodded slowly. "I never told anyone this, but I was like you once, ambitious, independent. Then I let this change me." I stood to leave, but she caught my hand. Her skin felt paper thin. "The night I left that first note," she whispered, "I was going to confess everything about the foundation, about Ethan's father. I was so tired of the lies. But then I saw how easy it would be to blame you instead." "Why tell me this now?" "Because you won the game I didn't even know I was playing." She released my hand. "Don't become me, Layla. Don't let victory turn into vindication." Outside, Ethan waited by his car. "You okay? Are you?" He shrugged. "Getting there. The foundation's recovering. I'm in therapy, dating someone new." "Good," I said, and meant it. "You know," he added, "she kept every article about your successes, even in prison. I think she admired you in her way." I thought about fear, about control, about the thin line between love and possession, about how revenge can consume you if you let it. Back at Marjorie's house, Naomi was finishing up. "Ready to close this chapter?" she asked. I looked around one last time. The empty rooms held no more power over me, no more secrets, no more fear. "Actually," I said, "I think I'll buy it." Naomi stared at me. "You're joking." "Not to live in," I explained. "To turn into a women's business center. Something good should come from all this." I received one last text from an unidentified number later that evening as I was standing on my balcony in New York. "You were always stronger than me. Make good use of it." I left this one in place. Some messages are worthy of being remembered for the lessons they ultimately imparted, not for the suffering they inflicted. Below, the city lights gleamed with potential. I discovered that family is about choice rather than just blood or marriage. Additionally, choosing oneself can occasionally be the most difficult decision.